Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Canole, and welcome back once again to another edition of the Movie Battleground. And if you're watching, this is the big one. This is the match that I feel like most people have been looking forward to since the season started. And we've had a handful of great matches already, but this is the big one. We have Amaru Moses, who ended the season last year by becoming the new champion, the third champion of our new era, and he is taking on the Arsonist Jay Burnz. Now, if you are somebody who watches a Movie Battleground match once every 2 to 3 months, watch a little more, or at the very least, click on a match or two. I'd appreciate the help. But you may be wondering, how did Jay end up here? Because when we ended last season in that title match, we talked about a tournament final. So here's what happened. We had a tournament final that was set up between Jay Burnz and Joe Fairley, both of who worked their way to the tournament to the final. However, when it came time to schedule the match and put things together, it was just unfortunate that it coincided with some difficulties in Joe's schedule, and we were unable to find a way in order to make this work. Now, my way of looking at situations is I never punish somebody, especially if they are missing out on something connected to a personal affair. So Joe does not lose his contendership. When he does make his return to the Battleground a little later this year, Joe will still have that number one contendership in his pocket to attempt to use. However, while I don't punish the people who have to miss out on things for personal reasons, I also don't believe in punishing the other person. And so because of that, Jay did work his way through the tournament. He did earn his way to the finals. And so by way of forfeit, because Joe was unable to make the match, Jay does become the winner of said tournament and make his way into the title match. And not that he hasn't earned it, as I will go ahead and bring him on screen before I give him some praise. Introducing the challenger with a record of 6 wins, 2 defeats, and 1 knockout. He is the Arsonist, Jay Burnz. Jay, welcome in, sir. All right, so let's talk about your tournament last year, because here's a fun stat for you. Of the 4 people who made it to the semifinals, yourself, Joe Fairley, one of our current contenders for the next number one contenders match, Austin Howell, and Will Cohen, you were the only competitor who did not receive a knockout victory in that tournament. However, you were also, I believe, the only one of those 4, with the exception of Austin, because he played you, who had to go to the blind round, and you had to do it twice in that tournament. So one could argue that you had the hardest path to get there, beating Jordan Owens, former title contender Chad Webb, and then Austin himself to get to that final. You have certainly earned your way here. Some of your victories in the past include former defending champion Henry Sanchez and our competitor tonight, Amaru Moses. How are you feeling coming into this?
Oh man, you know what? You're not wrong. I take every battle with a grain of salt at the end of the day. I might get animated and I might yell. I might be a little pissy about certain things just because it's not the way that I would do certain things. But it was a lot of fun. Playing Pez was interesting because I'd never played Pez before. And then Chad's another weird one because Chad monologues all of his stuff. So it's really kind of hard to fight somebody who has all of their information right in front of them instead of going off of the top of their head, which is something that I want to do a lot of the time. I find it puts me at ease. I have a touch of the ADHD, so it makes it a little bit easier to compartmentalize everything in my head. Rue, it's always fun playing Rue. Just to keep that running count going, you might want to put one up in the corner. Wu-Tang.
All right. We did make a joke behind the scenes, people. We will be keeping a running count, and I will come back to that at the end of the match. All right. Well, Jay, I'm going to go ahead and sit you in the back and bring in your opponent, who comes into this with a record of 8 wins, 1 defeat, looking to make his first defense. He is the Movie Battleground champion, Amaru Moses. Amaru, welcome back, sir, for the first time since your title victory last year. How are you feeling coming into tonight? All right, we're going to do 2. All right.
Wu-Tang. That's how I feel.
Welcome back, sir. How are you doing?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I am finally a champion at something, which is lovely. I was very happy about that. And I'm very glad of the opponent because the one on my loss on my record is Jay. So I'd like to get that back. But on the other hand, if I lose, I mean, it's to the guy who beat me already. So like, we know it's something that can happen. I love debating. I really do. And it's always fun going against Jay because we have very similar styles. I've switched over a lot more to just off the dome because I used to do both off the head and notes. I threw notes away. I just, let's just do this. And when we do that, it gets loud, it gets heated. We laugh, we cry, we scream Wu-Tang all the time. So I'm excited.
Hey, I can't. That is 3. All right. So Jay, in the background, I can't count it. They can't keep track that way. Coming into this, obviously, you did the big thing at the end of the year that multiple people attempted to do. Joe tried to do it. I tried to do it. Chad tried to do it. You took out Henry. And as you said, in addition to taking out yourself here, one of Jay's other big wins was against Henry. Henry only has 2 losses, yourself and Jay. So does the fact that all of Jay's victories are almost against bigger players like that mean anything to you, or is it just same as normal as it would have been if it had been, say, Joe?
No, it definitely does. And I think more so because of my loss to Jay. Anytime me and Jay have fought, it's been close. Anytime I've gone against anybody, it's been close. Those damn blind rounds. So just the fact, and it's not even just because he's beaten me and Henry. It's just that because Jay is a really close friend of mine. So being able to just go at it with him is always something special and always something I look forward to.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're not going to keep you guys apart much longer. We're going to go ahead and bring you in.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. We're up to 5. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. Movie Battleground is normally a game that is a best of 5 rounds, but this is a title match, so it is a best of 7 rounds tonight. It'll be the first player to 4 points takes the victory. Each round of debate is worth 1 point. If a competitor happens to pick up the first 4 points in a row, that will be a victory by knockout. And if at the end of 6 rounds, that will activate our tiebreaker, which in title matches is the speed round. Now, in terms of the title match, there's a lot of changes here and there. But the first 4 rounds are exactly the same. The competitors receive the questions. They've had the time to prepare whatever they would like to prepare. They will get a 60-second opening argument, followed by a 2-minute expansion period, a 4-minute open debate, which I think we're all very much looking forward to. And then there will be a 60-second closing argument, at which point they will wrap up their arguments. Backstage, I have 3 judges, Chad Webb, Malcolm Lay, and Noah McCausland, who are all contesting the Wu-Tang count at this point. Noah's already out of the competition. Sorry, buddy. But they will
should have given Quantumania a better score. You might have guessed higher.
There's going to be a response to that in a second, but they'll come on screen and film opinions, and Wu-Tang's aside, they will make a deliberation on who gets the vote.
He said
With all that said, though,
add it to the counter.
Add it. Okay, that's fine. We'll add it. Are you guys ready to go? All right.
Let's do this.
So let's go ahead and jump into this. So. Noah, only if we charge for it. I'm not going to say what he said, but I'm only going to say if we can charge for the views. With that said, we're going to go ahead and jump into this. So as is customary for all title matches, all 4 questions tonight, the first 4 rounds, are going to be strength choices by our competitors. This is in order to keep these top matches into exactly what they like because, obviously in a normal match, I fuck with people by picking random questions, but we have enough of that later. So let's jump into it. And one of the things that I was reading up on earlier, funny enough, is reportedly Beverly Hills Cop 4 recently finished production, which is incredibly exciting because it's one of those movies that's just been around since the 90s. It's like, yeah, we're going to make this one day. And one day finally came, which led me to ask the question because I feel like even though it wasn't an answer that was picked, in the modern day, a lot of people are not watching Beverly Hills Cop. I feel like film fans coming up maybe are not seeing it as much as older fans are. And thereby it may have become an underrated action comedy film. These guys picked 2 others. The question is, what is the most underrated action comedy of all time? Now, with that said, behind the scenes, Rue, because you are the champion, you have the choice of which questions to go first on. You picked to go first on the evens tonight, which means, Jay, you are up first on this question. I want to wish you guys both the best of luck. As I always say to the title match contenders, you're here for a reason. You've earned it. Jay, the timer will start for you when you begin speaking.
I think I've chosen a pretty decent action comedy or adventure comedy, whatever you want to call it. Action comedy is what the word states. And I've chosen a movie that, I don't know, time and time again, I find myself going back to because it's just such a fun movie. I chose Jingle All the Way. I think that this is by far probably one of the better adventure comedies, action comedies of the 1990s. You get Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to kind of do the whole little thing that he does, or tried to do in the 90s, which was move from like more of like an 80s action star into a comedic individual. And he's helped by Sinbad and Phil Hartman, two of the greatest comedians of the 90s. Rip to Phil Hartman, fuck you, Andy Dick. Jingle All the Way is the most underrated action comedy of all time.
All right. That is time on the round. Amaru, over to you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I seem to get an underrated question damn near every match. And every match I always state, it's really hard to figure out what underrated is. You could talk about what the critics say. You could talk about what fans say. You could talk about underseen. You could talk about under-talked about. But you know what? No matter what it is, you got to pick one that fits somewhere. And the one that I picked, it's one that as a kid, I loved to death. I could not stop watching it. And I didn't know until I was an adult the amount of hate this movie gets, to the point where 2 weeks ago, after I put my choice in, I'm listening to YLS and Payson Johnson randomly says, oh yeah, and then that director goes on and does the shit bomb that is Hudson Hawk. Why does this movie get hate? I don't understand it. We're doing a Wu-Tang counter. The amount of times I'm going to say fun in this round, it's going to be ridiculous. Because Hudson Hawk is one of the most fun movies I've ever seen in my life. That is why it's the most underrated. One reason.
And time. All right. Jingle All the Way versus Hudson Hawk is the round. Jay, back over to you. 2 minutes on the clock when ready.
Jingle All the Way has everything I need from an action comedy. It's got the buddy cop. It's got the woeful dad who is a little neglectful to his children and to his wife and is trying to make amends for it. It's got all of the product placement that you could ever want. Plus it's got iconic lines like "put the cookie down." It has everything I need in a movie. You know why people actually don't talk about this movie? Because it's underseen. The reason why people don't talk about Hudson Hawk is because Hudson Hawk is just a hot piece of fucking garbage. Payson was right. That movie is not fun. The movie is fucking weird. And the reason why nobody likes it is right there. It's Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis is not a good fucking action. He's not a good comedic guy. He's not. I'm sorry. He'll never be moonlighting ever again. And that's not a shot at him and his recent diagnosis of dementia. It's just he's not a comedic actor. He is more of a stoic individual, and it doesn't work. Your movie is disjointed. Whereas at least my movie, you could believe that Arnold might be some jacked dude who happens to live in the middle of Minnesota, and wants to give his kid a good birthday and is trying to be the best business person that he can possibly be, all while teaming up with Sinbad. By the way, there are two explosive package jokes in this movie, and both of them hit. And the fact that one of them is an actual IED is hilarious. What's not hilarious is the fact that it blows up. But right after that comes one of the most iconic lines. There's some sick people in this world, man. There's some sick people in this world. My movie is at least fun. Your movie is hard to follow. Nobody likes Bruce Willis. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Phil Hartman, enjoyable. Jake Lloyd before he became a criminal, also enjoyable, if not a little unbearable for being a child actor. But hey, it happens. But it's still the best underrated action comedy of all time.
And time. All right. We're going to add Jake Lloyd to the list of people I should probably apologize to, and we're going to move back over to Amaru. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Jay summed up my utter dismay and ridiculous, how in the hell is Hudson Hawk ever said to be bad. Look, everybody talked about Bruce Willis later in his career where he just phoned everything in. From jump, you can tell Bruce Willis is having the most fun doing this. When he yelled, "You never fuck with anybody from Hoboken before," after killing somebody, sums up how much fun he has in this film. He is the ultimate cool. All his one-liners are great, but even more so, what makes this movie better, because you're hinging on Bruce Willis being bad, the entire cast is having the most absolute fun they have ever had in their life, making this movie not very serious, more cool than ever, and embracing everything that is weird about it. You have Bruce's chemistry with Danny Aiello singing songs to keep time in order to figure out how to break out a heist. Them singing Shooting on a Star in the first heist is amazing. His chemistry with Andy McDowell, because they're trying to one-up each other, knowing that he's trying to get over on her, and then her, who's a member of a secret Vatican police, is trying to get over on him. You got James Coburn being the utter just smiling, evil CIA agent. Have you seen James Coburn? He is the epitome of cool in everything he does, but even more so. We talked about weird, and weird can get bad. And you know who gets really bad when they're weird? Sandra Bernhard and Richard E. Grant. But they know to just take it to a limit. They are absolutely wild to the point where you are laughing your ass off when they say lines. If Prince was hanging with us, we'd be in the backseat of a Cadillac naked eating sushi, and it fits so damn perfectly. They have David Caruso, the dude from CSI Miami, playing a mute, dressing up as everybody else, and using cards to talk. It is so damn fun, and everybody hates it, and I don't get why at all.
And time. All right. We're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. I'm going to give a moment of silence for all headphone users out there, and then, guys, you can go ahead and begin. Timer starts when you speak.
Brew, I got a question for you. So are you telling me that David Caruso is a better nonverbal speaker than I Need Money?
Then you need money. What does I need money?
Then I Need Money from How High? The movie starring two members of what? The Wu-Tang Squad, the Wu-Tang Clan. That's right.
I'm sorry. Yes, he is. Because the moment where he's dressed up as Bruce Willis and miming Bruce Willis and then get hit and he goes, hilarious. The moment when he dies and as a statue and then puts a card to say, I always liked you, hilarious. Everything about this movie is absolutely fun. It is not hard to follow. It's one heist. He gets out of jail. It's a heist of them singing. He meets Andy McDowell at an auction. It's another heist.
It's Swinging on a Star, evil. By the way.
Swinging on a Star. Thank you. Him trying to get a cappuccino over and over and over again, something screwing it up. There are so many hijinks here and cool one-liners that you're smiling from ear to ear from every single person that is on the screen.
You brought that up multiple times, and I'm a pretty big Bruce Willis fan. Don't get me wrong. I'm a pretty big B. Willie fan. Nobody knows any of the one-liners from this movie. There are not that many quotable one-liners from this movie because nobody remembers them, because this is an irrememberable movie. This is just an unremarkable movie.
That is why I am considering it to be underrated, because so many
There's a difference between a movie. There's a difference between a movie being unremarkable and unwatchable versus underrated. You have chosen a movie that is unwatchable and unremarkable, not underrated. Just because you like it doesn't make it underrated. Like, it's a hard metric, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying to you is, just because you enjoy this movie because you don't want to fuck with anybody from Hoboken doesn't make this a good movie. My movie is actually enjoyable, got panned, but has found a cult following later in life. Nobody has gone back and said, you know what? I really love that fucking Bruce Willis vehicle, Hudson Hawk.
I can name somebody specifically, but that's naming one person or two people like Alan Shepard or the people who...
Oh, Alan Shepard does not count. Exactly. The spaceman does not count.
That doesn't happen. But let me go back to this real quick. You're Jingle All the Way, who saying it is underrated. It's a great movie. But the movie that is on every single top Christmas list, every single top Arnold Schwarzenegger list, everybody actually talks about it. It can't be underrated if it has a cult following that is bigger than the cult following of my movie. You say it's underrated.
My movie has a bigger cult following than your. Hold on, my movie has a bigger cult following than your movie because my movie is actually watchable.
But you haven't given me anything that's actually bad about Hudson Hawk. You said there's no one-liners that people remember because they haven't seen it. Because they haven't seen it or not. If you've seen the movie, you know the one-liners. Are you fucking kidding me? You know Swinging on a Star, or more importantly, the fact that they sing and they count time by singing songs. It's not my fault I didn't remember the name of the film. What I'm saying is
the song, not the film.
I haven't heard anything.
You did remember the name of the film.
I haven't heard anything that goes against my film, and which is your argument that it's unremarkable. Nothing. You haven't been telling me anything. What I'm telling you is your movie is great, and it's not underrated because everybody agrees, and there's a cult following to it, and it's on lists. Everybody hates my movie. Everybody says it's unremarkable, but there's nothing about it.
The only person who puts my movie on a list is Alonzo Duralde, and that doesn't count. Like, that's because that man writes books on Christmas movies, but that's not a thing. It's not even close to anywhere near a Schwarzenegger list, by the way. So just let's go ahead and drop that one. Let's not act like that's a fact because it's not.
And time. All right, we're going to go ahead and move into the 1 minute closings. We're going to go back to Jay first, so the timer starts when you begin speaking.
The fact that I haven't had to talk about your movie, but I have brought up multiple things about my movie that makes it underrated means that your movie isn't rated at all. Nobody cares. Da Vinci's Helicopter, not a thing anymore. It would have already done and turned to dust after about 600 years. It's really weird that, like, there's a secret Vatican police. They're trying to steal shit. They're trying to stop the end of the world. There's so much going on in your movie that it's hard to follow. The one fucking through line that you have throughout this entire movie is the guy getting denied the cappuccino. And the fact that it happens more than 3 times and everybody knows that comedy comes in threes is really weird. At least what I have in my movie is a mix of genres. You have action adventure. You have a martial arts movie, that entire warehouse fight scene with Arnold versus all of the Santa Claus, the buddy cop with him and Sinbad when they team up. My movie is underrated because people didn't watch it when it came out, and it wasn't until people started talking about it in small circles that it started to gain a following. That's why it's underrated.
And time. All right, Rue, back over to you. Final minute of the round.
Jingle All the Way cannot be underrated because, one, Arnold Schwarzenegger was one of the biggest stars of all time when he was coming out there. So people watched it, and now it has a cult following that's on all the Christmas lists, all the Schwarzenegger lists, a lot of the action comedy lists. It comes up a lot, so it can't be underrated if people are talking about it. Jay basically has shown why mine is underrated because people lambast it. People call it horrible. People call it underrated, but they can't back it up with actual facts on why it is bad. When in actuality, Bruce Willis having fun is one of the coolest dudes on screen. Andie MacDowell is probably one of the most underrated rom-com stars because she's such a damn great actress and has chemistry with everybody. James Coburn and Danny Aiello as the sidekick and the evil guy. Again, coolest people ever. The Candy Bar crew with David Caruso and all the side characters are having so much fun. It's all summed up by Sandra Bernhard and Richard E. Grant, who are usually way too wild, knowing how to toe the line that this movie is wild but fun and everybody loves it who actually gives it a chance.
And time. All right. Excellent first round, guys. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the back and bring our judges in. There's nothing really to fact check there. Everything was pretty much clean. I did try and find a list of Arnold Schwarzenegger films to discuss, but most of them have like 7-8 paragraphs worth of like Arnold Schwarzenegger testosterone writing before you get to the list, and my phone wasn't loading that quick, so I didn't check any of it. With that said, Chad, going to you, who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
This is a very, very, very tough round. These are top tier competitors, so they're both going at it, both making fantastic points. At the end of the day, with this one, I went Rue here. I was back and forth the whole time, but the reason I went Rue is because I feel like he did a really good job because I haven't seen Hudson Hawk, so I don't really know much about it, but he was doing a really good job at telling me about the movie, like, you know, saying why he thinks it's very, very good despite everybody hating on it. And then even though he didn't talk much about Jingle All the Way, he still was able to say that, like, it's on a lot of Christmas lists. People talk about it all the time and they rate it very highly, you know, even though, like, you know, critics or whoever might not. And, you know, even though Jay had some really good points about, you know, how Hudson Hawk is unwatchable, I feel like Rue countered that by saying a lot of really great things about the movie.
All right, Malcolm, down to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah, this was ultimately really tough, and it's just, and ultimately, my vote is also going to Rue, to part because, like, he managed to sort of sell me on, like, why he loves sort of Hudson Hawk and all that, and he also countered that by bringing up the fact that people do talk about Jingle All That a lot of the time, and all that. So yeah, looks like Jay won't be attending that hat convention in July.
All right, judges, thank you guys so much. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the back, and we will bring the competitors back in as we're going to go ahead and jump into question number 2. That was a really, I feel like we did some good last round. We took 2 films that most definitely have had a lot of people shit on them over the years. I think you guys both did a great job at shining some positive light on them. It's too positive. Let's shit on something. The question is, what is the worst sci-fi franchise of all time? Because naturally speaking, we want to focus on the best sci-fi franchises of all time. And arguably, if anything is a franchise, that means there has to be at least something good within there. So what went the most bad? Let's go ahead and jump into this. With that said, first off, in the private chat, you cannot boost the Wu-Tang count by writing Wu-Tang. That will not help. It needs to be said on screen.
Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang.
There we go.
Wu-Tang.
All right, I think that's like 11 because I also said it. With that said, we're going to go ahead and get into this. Amaru, you are up first this time around, so I'll give you the timer, and it'll start when you begin speaking.
To have a good sci-fi franchise, you have to bring your audience along for things that might not, at surface level or at the start, be easy to understand, because there's a lot of weird things. There's a lot of things that have to, like, jump the shark. It's not reality. You need to build a lot of lore, and you need to get people to believe all that lore. And there's a certain franchise that movie after movie after movie after movie just couldn't get a hold on that lore or get a hold on anything. CGI, acting, story, anything. And that franchise is Resident Evil. I'll continue that in my 2 minutes.
All right, so that'll be time on the round. So Resident Evil is the first offering up. I can say this since it's not a movie, but shout out to that Netflix series. You guys did great things. Actually, funny enough, I made that joke. Jay also has a Netflix series, although probably no one here has seen that. Jay, over to you. You have a minute on the clock when you begin speaking.
All right. Formalities.
If you need a second, you're good.
What's worse? Coming into a movie knowing that your franchise is going to have a shitty track record because all video game movies have a shitty track record, or coming in with by far one of the most iconic movies of the 1990s and then completely shitting the bed all the way through the rest of the franchise? I chose a movie that comes through, hits hard as a motherfucker. Everybody loves the first one. Some people like the second one. The third one falls off. Nobody talks about the fourth one. The fifth one is hot garbage. I chose Jurassic Park. And I chose Jurassic Park / World because it's one of those things where like it had so much promise to be one of the greatest sci-fi franchises of all time. What's more sci-fi than bringing an extinct species back to life and not learning from your mistakes 5 times over? It had such a great premise in the first one. Michael Crichton had a great book, helped write the movie, and then it went all the way downhill from there.
And time. All right. Go ahead and jump back over. Amaru, you have 2 minutes on the clock when you begin speaking.
Resident Evil, the biggest reason why that franchise is the worst sci-fi franchise of all time is because of how convoluted it is. It is so convoluted that almost every single sequel after the first had to start with their own 3 or 4 minute recap of the movie before it because they can't even remember what they did with so many twists and turns. Let's start with Alice. Let's start with Mila Jovovich, who wakes up in the first movie with amnesia, and then at the end of the movie has to wake up again with barely no clothes on, and then 2 movies later she's a clone, but then another movie she's a clone of another clone, but then it's a prequel, but then by the end of it you realize that she was the Red Queen lady and also the clone, but also the old lady at the end of the film, at the end of the series, that that comes with this beautiful piece of dialogue where the main evil guy from Game of Thrones comes back and calls them a trinity of bitches. Let's go from there. Dialogue is absolutely horrible, and then you bring in CGI, one of the most key tenets of any sci-fi franchise, and you literally, in your second movie, and maybe some of your third, bring in the graphics from the game. I'm not talking about like the new games. I'm talking about PS1 game and put it into live action. You get one dude from the first movie, make him a really weird looking nemesis in the second. I can't remember if he comes back in the third. People in the third who have died come back as clones in the fourth. And then Umbrella has the Hive, and then the Hive is a part of the government, but then the government actually wasn't there for it all along. The Red Queen was a daughter of a scientist in the first movie, which then came back later in the 5th movie and wasn't the Red Queen, but she was. I don't know what the hell is going on. It's horribly acted. It's convoluted as hell. The graphics are really, really ridiculous. They don't give anybody any character depth. And over and over again, it's a piece of shit. Jay is giving us a movie that has the best, arguably one of the best movies of all time.
And time. All right, Jay, over to you.
You're right. I chose a franchise with arguably the strongest opening movie of all time. And then it goes from a peak all the way down. There is no up after that. I'm sorry. It's the story of diminishing returns over and over again. What's worse, knowing that your movie or your franchise is going to be shit because it's based off a video game and you couldn't get Uwe Boll to direct it, or having Steven Spielberg direct by far probably one of the best movies of the 90s that isn't entirely in black and white, isn't about check scamming, and then creating a sequel which didn't do as well because nobody cared. They took the best character from the first movie and then kind of fucking neutered him. The third one, nobody gave a shit about because nobody cares. They just tried to introduce a new dinosaur to sell products. My movie had promise. My franchise had promise. That's what makes it the worst. I'm taking something that had an actual premise and actually had the ability to be one of the greatest franchises of all time, and then completely shit the bed after the first one. Included. I'm sorry. That's really what it comes down to. You want to talk about convoluted? Bro, we're going to steal dinosaur embryos by sticking them into a can of Barbasol. You gave a very rough estimation of what you thought that the fucking plot for your movies were because you didn't actually watch all of those movies. I know you haven't watched all of those movies because I know you. We boys like that. You don't have to lie. I've actually seen all of the fucking Jurassic Park movies, and I'm not gonna lie. JP1, Jurassic Park 1 is #1 of all time, and then it's literally just a trail of just downhill the entire way. And I think that's what's worse. The fact that you spoiled, the fact that you squandered such a great idea and trivialized it down to shit.
And time. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump into the open debate round. Time starts when the first competitor speaks.
Hey, voice of God, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Wu-Tang.
There we go.
Whether I've seen them or not, I know about them. I know about the plots. I know what they're like. I've seen one, and I've probably seen another one after that, and I never wanted to see any of the rest of them again because I knew how shitty they were. And you're talking about, like, what is the most disappointing franchise? Sure, Jurassic Park. But your diminishing returns with actually every single movie in Jurassic Park having something good in it is much better than 6+ movies that have almost zero value whatsoever. I'm going to say this again in the future, but if you have arguably one of the greatest movies of all time up against 6 shitty movies, your franchise cannot be worse. But let's go through Jurassic Park. Again, Jurassic Park, arguably one of the greatest movies of all time. Jurassic Park, The Lost World, has Goldblum in it, has the compies in it, and has the raptors in the grass in it, which is a very iconic scene. Has good things. Also, Pete Postlethwaite. Jurassic Park 3, it's cheesy, it's campy, but it's short. It has
Alan.
It has Alan. I'm sorry. Everybody loves that now. Everybody loves that.
Nobody loves it, bro. They say it to shame it.
But it's hilarious.
They say it to shame it, which makes it worse, which just helps my argument.
Jurassic World, highest domestic film of all time. I think still maybe 1 or 2 for a reason. Pratt, some people might not like him, but he's still pretty great. The movie has some merit. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, that first third of the movie is actually very fucking good. The rest is shit. And Jurassic World Dominion, at least they brought people back. At least it was mediocre. Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 do not have good things in them.
You can't say that. You haven't watched
them all. I've seen clips of the acting. I've seen the CGI.
Okay,
Sorry,
but you haven't seen the movie.
I saw 2. That doesn't diminish the fact that they're still absolutely
But you can't.
trash.
You should not be able to form. You should not be able to form a
fact.
cogent argument based off of that. What I'm saying about my movie is that it starts off incredibly well and then falls off. It literally took them 20 years to come back and make the fucking next one. I'm sorry, it was like 17 years to come back and make the fucking next one. Do the math. 15 years. Whatever. I don't do I'm not a math guy, okay? But and it's not even that good because it's just a rehash of the first one. The only difference is now you've got a guy who can control the raptors, but can he control the raptors? Oh no, what's gonna happen when you let raptors into the fucking wild? We know what's gonna happen. We saw the fucking first one. It's literally just the same shit rehashed. At least there's something different in each one of yours. And also, you said the main bad guy from Game of Thrones. Are you talking Charles Dance?
No, not main bad guy. The Khaleesi guy is your mad guy.
Yes.
Whatever
fake Scottish guy. Yes.
Him.
Yes. The guy who looks like David Wenham but isn't David Wenham.
Exactly.
Okay. Still, even not remembering what that guy's name is. I can barely remember Pete Postlethwaite's name in fucking Jurassic Park 2 or in the Lost World Jurassic Park. But this is the thing that I'm talking about is it goes from such a peak because you had such a great idea and then you just did the same thing over and over again. At least with your movie, your franchise, what they tried to do was introduce and follow along in the lines of the video games. And I know you brought up the CGI in your video game, but let's be real here. The CGI in your video game or in your movie comes directly from the video game. They did that intentionally. And again, being a bad movie franchise doesn't make it the worst sci-fi franchise of all time. You just chose a shitty franchise in hopes that people are like, oh no, I remember those movies and those are fucking bad. I chose an intentionally decent franchise that had potential and then fucking squandered all of it. You just chose shit and was like, here, this is the answer.
Shit is worse.
No.
And time.
Wu-Tang.
All right. We're going to go ahead and jump into the closing round. Amaru, you are back up first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Yes, you can put together a cogent argument not seeing the entirety of films because you could look into what actually happened and back up the fact that the worst sci-fi franchise of all time is the worst sci-fi franchise of all time for reasons like repeating clone storylines, repeating the same characters coming back and dying again over and over, repeating that the Red Queen needs to get one person from here to there, needs to then have Alice go defeat virtual reality world, and then go defeat the government, and then go defeat some more clones. Just doing the same thing over and over and over, as you said already. You can put a cogent argument knowing that the pieces of every single movie are absolutely horrible. Again, Jurassic Park, greatest film of all time, cannot be a part of the worst sci-fi franchise than Resident Evil that has no good movies whatsoever. The most disappointing sci-fi franchise of all time, sure, but when every single piece of every one of your movies has something good and none of mine have anything good, mine's is worse.
And time. All right, Jay, you get to close us out this time around. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I'd just like to point out that during the argument, my opponent said, oh, you know, these movies are so bad that they have to take like 3 or 4 minutes to recap what happened in the last movie. Guess what? That's what happens in video games. That's what you get in a video game movie. That's not a fucking flaw. That's not a bug. That's a feature. You sit here and say that I had the best movie in, like you said it, I had the best movie, but guess what, having the best movie and then watching it fall off of a fucking cliff makes it one of the worst sci-fi franchises of all time, because it had so much potential and then it fucking squandered it. You chose something that didn't have any potential and then act like it should. I don't think that your argument holds water because you haven't seen all of the movies, so you don't understand what is actually going on. And there's actually a coherent story meshed all the way through. At least with mine, it literally is the same thing. And like I said, it's a story of diminishing returns. We can go back and forth, and I can't wait to get outvoted on this one again. But having the worst...
And time. All right, I'm going to go ahead and sit you guys in the back. I will bring the judges forth for the deliberation. I do have a couple of fact checks here just off of some of the things the guys said. So in terms of, because it was questioned multiple times, finding cohesive story for the Resident Evil films, I have not seen most of these movies, so I'm not even going to try and act like I could Google that and actually answer the question for you. However, I did, in also response to answering another thing that was brought up about the inconsistent casting in these films. So on Wikipedia, there's this very nice thing that's often done where they put together cast grids for franchises. And there is at least some extent of a through line because there are a lot of characters just on the outset that continue to return. There's also numerous credits here for things like flashbacks and cameos and things like that that persist. So you could argue in that sense there is a through line. Again, I wish I could say more. In terms of the inconsistent casting, that is 100% a correct thing here. This is one of the funniest things I've ever read when you look at how many actors are in these films. The mentioned character of the Red Queen is in, as a character, 4 of the 6 films. She is played by 5 different actresses over the course of those 4 films that she's in. And the same actress never appeared more than once outside of a flashback. The character that you were probably thinking of that appeared in multiple sequels was Tyrant, which was introduced around the same time as Nemesis in the films. He was played by the actor whose name you couldn't remember, Ian Glenn, who portrayed Ser Jorah Mormont in Game of Thrones. I probably said that wrong, sorry. The character of Nemesis was in the first 2 films, though he did not appear in the franchise after that. Other interesting castings include Michelle Rodriguez, who was in the first one and the 5th one. She is in none of them outside of that. Multiple characters appear in 2 and 3 and then skip the 4th film, but come back from the 5th film and then sit out the 6th film. And there was, for what it's worth, it was not mentioned, so it's not relevant to the argument, but there was a reboot, if anybody remembered that. Yeah, within the span of a year, this had a film reboot and a television reboot, and it went nowhere. There were 14 years between Jurassic Park 3 and Jurassic World. Jurassic Park 3 came out in 2001. Jurassic World came out in 2015. I did the math for you. In terms of how people feel about these films, the quickest and easiest way is to go to Rotten Tomatoes. Obviously, all the Resident Evil films received negative reviews, although it is interestingly worth noting that the technical highest reviewed film of the series is the final one, which has a 37% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes and an average score of 49 out of 100 on Metacritic. The first one is right below it, although it's worth noting that the reboot is actually technically the second best reviewed film of the series. Jurassic Park, it's not even worth stating that most of these films are technically higher rated than the Resident Evil ones, but that wasn't the argument Jay was making, so it shouldn't go against him in that sense. Jurassic Park is the highest rated film of all of these with a 92% approval rating, and the lowest film of the franchise is actually Jurassic World Dominion, which finished at a 29% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So again, backing the argument of diminishing returns, the latest one did finish last. With that said, though, Malcolm, I go to you. Based on the arguments, who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Ultimately, while I disagree with this person's choice, it's not about my opinions. It's about how they convince. And I think Jay managed to convince me about Jurassic Park. I heard a lot more from Jay with Amaru. Like, it was a good battle, but I heard he kind of tried to hammer down his points a lot, and just a lot of it was countered by Jay very easily. So I'm going to go Jay on this.
All right. Noah, down to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Dominion is fucking shit. Anyway, I really liked where Jay was going with his argument and saying that because Jurassic Park was on this golden pedestal, basically, just having the rest of the series just take a nosedive would make it the worst. But Amaru just really had a point that was just unbeatable in my opinion, and that was like even if the rest of the movies are dog shit, Jurassic Park is still better than all of these movies combined, or like better than any of them, and that can't make it the worst. And that point could not be beaten in my opinion. So I'm gonna have to give it to Amaru.
Okay, so we have a split vote. Chad, over to you. As concise as you can get it for me, who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah, I'm actually also going Rue this time. The reason why is because I understood like where Jay was trying to go, but like he didn't really talk about Resident Evil that much for me at all to like try and say why it's good. Like he had one point at the very end where he said it has a coherent story, but like Rue said it didn't, and he was actually like going through and explaining all of this like convoluted mess that Resident Evil actually is. And if he hadn't said that he hadn't seen the movies, I wouldn't have known because I haven't either. But he was just like explaining like a lot of the plot, and it didn't really make sense at all for that whole thing. Talking about how Jurassic World actually has a pretty great movie, and then he took the time to actually go through and give me points about why each film in the Jurassic World franchise has something good in it to actually, you know, make it watchable. So I just didn't hear enough from Jay to counter with positives for Resident Evil. So I went Rue.
Okay. All right, Judges, thank you guys so much. I'm going to go ahead and pull you in, and we're going to go ahead and move on to question number 3. And this is one of those moments where I can be a decent host because we have a callback. Remember earlier when I talked about Beverly Hills 4 finishing filming? We want Eddie Murphy to have a good film, don't we? We all want Eddie Murphy to have a good film. I haven't seen You People yet, but I wouldn't say it's the good film you've been waiting for based on the reviews that it got and the opinions that I've heard. Maybe the decent film you want him to be in. That said, we're not going to debate good Eddie Murphy movies. The question is, what is the worst movie starring or featuring Eddie Murphy of all time? Going to go back into it. Jay, you are up first on this one, so I will give you the timer, and it starts when you begin speaking.
Norbit's the worst movie that Eddie Murphy has ever made outside of Coming to America. But Coming to America is bad because it is a fucking sequel, and it's just hot fucking garbage. Norbit is just Eddie Murphy trying to capture the Nutty Professor glory that he had by playing almost every single fucking character that he has ever fucking portrayed and turning them into a shitty individual. I'm sorry, this movie is just bad. Meet Dave actually tries to do. I'm sorry, I don't mean to do that to you. My bad. Yeah, Norbit's just it's bad. This movie is not great. It's not even a movie where like the main character finds a spine because he wants to find a spine. He finds a spine for pussy, And that's not a great reason to like end up sticking up for yourself. That's just going to lead to more toxicity later on in your life. Norbit is just all around hot garbage. Eat that turkey ass.
All right, that'll be time. We'll end on hot ass. Amaru, over to you. You have a minute on the clock. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I'm going to spend my 2 minutes explaining why my movie is the worst movie, Eddie Murphy movie of all time. But Jay, thank you for giving me something else to talk about this in this minute. If I would have remembered, actually not remembered, that other movie you talked about didn't exist. That's why I didn't pick it, or I would have picked it, but it doesn't exist. So whatever that movie you just said, it doesn't matter. Secondly, while watching Meet Dave, you know what's fucking hilarious? Within 5 minutes, you know what song is played? Wu-Tang Clan coming out. So watch your step kid. Watch your step kid. Watch your
It can't be bad. It's got Wu-Tang in it.
You best protect your neck. And I knew if Jay watched it, he's gonna say it can't be bad because Protect Your Neck comes out in the first 5 minutes. And while I was watching it, I was like, oh shit, don't do that. And then I watched it, and then it confirmed why I think Meet Dave is definitely the worst Eddie Murphy movie of all time. Those that exist.
And time. This can be a painful rest of the round, isn't it? All right, Jay, back over to you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
There's so many things wrong with this. Like, I get it. The Eddie Murphy shtick in the first Coming to America, the good Coming to America, not the movie that doesn't exist, where he plays like multiple characters of different ethnicities, makes sense. And playing Mr. Wong in this movie, not at all. Like, don't get me wrong. I would probably find a backbone if Condiway Newton was like, yo, leave your bitch of a fucking wife, who is also mysteriously just like you, except 300 fucking pounds. No, Norbit is so bad. This movie isn't even funny for cringe reasons. This movie tries to be funny, and every time it tries to be funny, it tries to one-up itself, and it just doesn't fucking work for me. I am so sorry. And Ro brought it up. That movie's got Wu-Tang in it. I wasn't gonna say it. Actually, I was gonna say it in like the fucking 5-minute argument, but he brought it up first. That was gonna be my like, that's my go-to. That's my got him right there. But I can't. Like, okay, so this is a nerd working for accounting for her brother-in-law's like construction company. Are they good people? Absolutely not. They make him eat turkey ass. I think that might be the funniest fucking moment in this movie when they serve him turkey ass. But like, oh, that, and I'm sorry, Mr. Wong's whale ho, funny. Does not make it, like, 2 funny moments in a movie do not make it great. I'm sorry, this is the worst movie starring Eddie Murphy. At least Meet Dave tried to do something. Even if it is a remake, at least what Meet Dave tried to do was moderately original. This is just a rehash of everything it is that Eddie Murphy has ever tried to do that brought him success. He tried to pull the Adam Sandler route, and it didn't work for him, and he flopped harder than Adam Sandler did, and Adam Sandler didn't even learn from it, which is sad. But Eddie Murphy is just phoning everything in this movie. I'm sorry. Rasputia, terrible person.
And time. All right, Rue, back over to you.
Both of our movies are dog shit. They're horrible. So we got to basically argue about which one is the worst. And really, for me, to be the worst Eddie Murphy movie of all time, you got to be not an Eddie Murphy movie. How do you create a movie with Eddie Murphy in it and you neuter Eddie Murphy the entire time? He is in 2 different roles, as a ship and as a little person, a fucking robot. He's a robot with no personality, with none of the stuff you love from Nutty Professor, none of the stuff you love from Coming to America, nothing. Jay said original. I'm sorry, but Meet Dave is the version of My Favorite Martian without any personality. It's Coneheads without any hilarious stuff in it, because it is a fish out of water story of an alien finding a family and then finally a family and then trying to fit in and realize something. Every single aspect of that movie has been seen in multiple movies before, on top of the fact that not only do you neuter Eddie Murphy and you have no semblance of any part of him in that film, you also neuter Ed Helms. You also neuter Gabrielle Union. And when you do finally try to, let's say, build some characters where the aliens are like starting to get emotions from everybody on Earth, you turn the gay guy into the most stereotypical gay guy ever. You turn Ed Helms into the most Nickelodeon, Disney family, B-movie, family movie villain ever, period. Elizabeth Banks, who is Elizabeth Banks, could have been played by Anna Kendrick, who also could have been played by Anna Faris. Everything about Meet Dave is a carbon copy of every other fish out of water alien movie you have ever seen, and all Disney family movies are better than this film. Most of all, it's the worst Eddie Murphy movie of all time because Eddie Murphy, as we know it, ain't even fucking in it.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the open discussion round. Timer starts when you begin speaking.
You know why Eddie Murphy's not in your movie? Like, legitimately, you want to know why Eddie Murphy's not in your movie? Because he made the dog shit Norbit a year before Meet Dave, and that was Damage Control. They were trying to stem away from that because every time he tried to do the gimmick of playing multiple characters, it didn't work. Also, don't try to flip my words. I didn't say that your movie was original. I said your movie was a remake, and it has some original qualities to it. No, your movie, is it bad? Yeah. Is it as bad as Norbit? No, because Norbit was the first movie that started the decline of Eddie Murphy, because it was that thing that Eddie Murphy tried to do where Eddie Murphy tried to rehash everything it is that Eddie Murphy has ever done that has brought him success, and it just didn't work for him. And then they tried to course correct. I'm sorry. And then they tried to course correct with Meet Dave.
And that course correction put him in a worse course correction where I can't remember too many movies after that he made because he was like, yo, I'm done.
The Adventures of Pluto
which was what he should have course corrected in the first place, because that shit is underrated. That shit is kind of funny.
That shit is underrated.
But Meet Dave, again, at least Norbit has the R rating, which allows you to see the Eddie Murphy that you know. But let's get back to Meet Dave. There is nothing original about it. I told you how Elizabeth Banks can be played by Anna Faris, can be played by Anna Kendrick, how this movie can become my favorite.
Yeah, we get it. You can swap out any white woman with another white woman. It's understandable.
You could flip the roles of Eddie Murphy and Ed Helms, and it would be the exact same movie. How do you make a movie with Eddie Murphy where Ed Helms can play Eddie Murphy the exact same way with the exact same lines? You have the exact same movie. This is nothing more. You can't. This is nothing more, again, than a bad family movie. They even give out the lines of the bully. Oh, what are you playing? Nerdball? In 2008, where movies like Kung Fu Panda came out, where they know kids are intelligent enough to actually have some depth, have some hilarities. Look, Norbit sucks. However, we talked about a couple of things that are funny. We get a semblance of Eddie Murphy that we love, so there's jokes. But you said there's nothing funny about it. At least this movie has fucking Cat Williams and Eddie Murphy as the pimps dapping each other up and saying beautiful lines. Like one, when Rasputia does the bouncy ball and bullets those kids out of there, which allowed me to say, fuck them kids. I love it. One small white girl falls into a stack of hay, and Eddie Griffin says, small white women are falling out from the sky. My prayers have been answered. And then Cat Williams replies, well, bitch better move because I prayed for a Cadillac. I fucking died. And they are in it maybe every 20 minutes to be able to bring you back to remember this is a R-rated Eddie Murphy comedy that does what he actually does. They do it hard. They do it really bad. They do it very racist, which they call out, but they at least give Eddie Murphy something to do, which you remember. Dave, you don't remember at all.
What you're saying is you could literally replace Eddie Murphy with just about anybody who has ever worn a fat suit ever, and it would still be the same movie. That makes this a bad movie, and it makes it the worst Eddie Murphy movie because you move on to neutered shit where they won't take chances with movies like Meet Dave. I'm sorry, they tried it here. It didn't work because they were trying to get back to that pedestal of where like the Clumps were, where the Nutty Professor was, which is a better remake than any of these fucking movies could ever possibly be. They don't They don't call out the racism in Norbit. That's the worst part about it. They just let Eddie Murphy do what Eddie Murphy wants to do. I'm sorry, that doesn't make it a good movie. It's actually the worst Eddie Murphy movie ever because it derailed his career because he only did 2 things after this until like 2018. And it started with My Movie. That's what makes it the worst. That's why it killed his career. That's why it's the worst movie starring Eddie Murphy.
All right, we're going to go back into the closing arguments here. Jay, you are back up with Norbit. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Like I said, there are several funny moments in My Movie. I'm not denying that, but several funny moments in a movie does not a good movie make. That is one thing where you're like, oh man, this movie had such potential, and then they fucking wasted it. Like I said, Meet Dave, decent movie. You could replace the main character in both of those movies with other people in the movie, and it would still be a thing. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is the reason why My Movie is the worst movie starring or featuring Eddie Murphy of all time is because it's what started that derailment of his career. It's that thing that led to him falling off of the cliff. I know it's a metaphor I've used before, but it still stands the test of time. Nobody remembers your movie because nobody watched your movie. That doesn't make it a bad movie. What makes it a bad movie is the fact that it was trying to be a course correction and it failed at being a course correction because it was that penultimate nail in the coffin of Eddie Murphy's career for an actual fucking decade.
And time. All right, so we're going to go back over to Rue, final minute of the round, when ready.
They do call out the racism when Mr. Wong says, I don't like blacks, and Norbit says, that's racist. And Mr. Wong responds, I'm racist. Yes, I'm racist. I hate blacks. I hate Jews. But you know what? They pay good money, so I let them in. And then Norbit goes, calling out the racism. No, you cannot replace Eddie Murphy in this role because he is so iconic as a person in a fat suit that, Wendy Williams, the talk show host, you know how she always says, how you doing? She took that from Rasputia. Rasputia says that in the movie, and Wendy Williams took it and run with it because Eddie Murphy is so iconic. I am not saying Norbit is good. Norbit is hot trash. What I'm saying is it is better than Meet Dave. It is at least more memorable, more funny. You get remnants of things. You got Catwoman and Eddie Griffin. Whereas Meet Dave is a carbon copy of every other really bad family movie with Eddie Murphy in it, a neutered Eddie Murphy. You could switch Ed Helms. You could switch the white women. You could switch the random white dude. It doesn't give kids any type of intelligent anything, and it is so unmemorable that it's horrible for Eddie Murphy movie.
Boo.
All right.
Boo words. Wu-Tang. Boo words.
The fact that it really started with Protect Your Neck was I was watching it, are you fucking kidding me?
I couldn't bring it up. I can't bring it up after you brought it up. I was like, fuck. There goes my trump card on this one. But no, I think I did pretty good.
All right, we're going to go ahead and put you guys in the back and bring in the judges. So I have not really fact checks, just more fun facts here analyzing these films. So funny enough, both Norbit and Meet Dave were directed by the same guy, Brian Robbins. He also directed another Eddie Murphy film that would follow called 1,000 Words. These 3 films were basically shot back to back to back. However, the first 2 went over so well that 1,000 Words, which was shot in 2008 into 2009, released in 2012. So yeah, needless to say, these are both fucking horrible movies. In terms of Eddie Murphy's career derailment, again, yeah, you can very much point the finger at these films. So off the back of Eddie Murphy, what should have been an Oscar nomination for Dreamgirls in 2006, he had Norbit in 2007, Shrek the Third as well the same year, Meet Dave in 2008. Imagine that in 2009, which was another horrible kids film that had sat on the shelf for a few years. Shrek Forever After came out in 2010. Tower Heist came out in 2011, and then 1,000 Words finally came out in 2012. Since 1,000 Words, Eddie Murphy has done 4 films. Mr. Church in 2016, Dolomite Is My Name in 2019, The Film We Shall Not Name in 2021, and You People earlier this year. We also talked about how he wrapped Beverly Hills Cop. Axel Foley is the full name of the movie, and he has another movie called Candy Cane Lane in development, which is apparently a Christmas film. Okay, sure. So yeah, needless to say, his career really still hasn't recovered from either of these films. And no matter which one you think is the worst, I think we should all say a big fuck you to Brian Robbins. If anyone's curious how his career is going, no joke, he's the CEO of Paramount and Nickelodeon. Hasn't made a film since 1,000 Words, but he's a fucking CEO. So think about that. Noah, I'm going to go up to you first. Based on the arguments, who gets your vote and what was the main selling point?
First off, I want to say fuck you, Aaron, for making me come judge this, because this is ridiculously hard to judge. The past 2 rounds have been it's sort of been a tie for most of the match, but with this one, without any suspense, I'm going to say Jay on this one. The point that he made about this being where the nosediving of Eddie Murphy's career really began, really hit home for me, even though I haven't seen either of these movies. He said the comedy was not funny, even for cringe sake. It was just really, really bad. It was also his point about Eddie Murphy trying to make this movie like Eddie Murphy's best hits, but failing on that account. Was another big point for me. But just for that, I'm saying Jay.
Okay. So first vote goes to Jay. Chad, over to you. Who gets your vote and what was the main selling point?
I actually mirror pretty much everything Noah said. I also went Jay. It's just, this one was like so freaking hard because they both had kind of different approaches and they both were working very, very well. Even Rue trying to like defend Norbit a little bit was working for me. But, ultimately Jay saying that like Norbit's where it started, was just like really, it's really unrecoverable from that. And talking about the racism, talking about the, the cringe, or it's not even like funny cringe. It's just like bad. And even, Meet Dave at least has, Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers. So there you go.
Okay, we're adding Chad to the Wu-Tang list. Guys, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and put you guys in the back, and we will go ahead and jump into question number 4. And to address some things in the private chat. Yes, Jay, you are correct. You can apparently only fail upwards in Hollywood. He's a CEO. Well, he runs Paramount, to be fair, so I guess that makes sense. Also,
they have a failing streaming service, but somehow he's gonna get stock buybacks and a fucking raise later on this year. Capitalism has failed us, kids. Eat the rich.
Yeah, why not? If it keeps the show alive, I'll support it. Sure. And to answer your question of what I meant by you people, whatever Kenya Barris and Jonah Hill meant, that is what I'm going to politically say.
Oh, is that the movie where Jonah Hill doesn't actually kiss the lead actress at the end of the movie?
Wait, is that real?
Yeah, no, that's a CGI kiss. He does not kiss the lead actress in that movie when they get married. Yeah, no, that's bad.
They CGI'd a kiss?
Yeah, they CGI'd that kiss like they CGI'd baby mouth Superman.
Lauren London, by the way. Lauren London is her name.
I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know. I just know that portion of the movie. I'm just saying. Respectfully, I'm just saying.
I can't even wrap my head around that. That's okay, whatever.
I know it's the first time in a movie, Malcolm, that Jonah Hill has ever kissed anybody.
All right. Well, that was about as weird as it can get. So let's just jump into something else that's fucking weird. How'd you like that transition? The question is...
Boo, it was bad.
What major movie franchise should have an entry directed by Kevin Smith? Now, I want to set this with a preface because the wording was a tough choice in terms of how to word it. What I mean by major movie franchise is something that is recognizable IP. It doesn't have to be something that's actively running now. It doesn't have to be something that's making billions of dollars at the box office. I don't want to Marvel. I was going to say Marvel versus DC, but DC's not making $1 billion at the box office. It doesn't have to be...
Sadly, they are, though. Sadly, they are. Black Adam, no. But, everything else, yeah. Black Adam, no. But...
Anyways, as long as it is something that is recognizable, and I actually think for what it's worth, you guys picked 2 out-of-the-box answers that definitely meet the requirement. And technically have both been in the news recently in terms of releases. So, we're there. With that said, though, Rue, you are up first. I will go ahead and give you the timer, and it'll start when you begin speaking.
Kevin Smith is considered by a lot of people the geek of all geeks, the king of the nerds, the dude you look to for all positivity, all just greatness when it comes to our nerddom and our geekdom. But as a director, he also does really, really, really well with ensembles, with comedy, of course, with comedy with a tad bit of action in it, and really giving us characters that you love. And know and making them memorable or making them even more memorable. So for me, when it came to Kevin Smith, putting him in any major franchise kind of really would be a curveball that's either 100% a hit or 100% a miss. So I went with the one which I think is going to be a guaranteed hit, especially because he's been in one of these movies before as an animated character, and it was beautiful. And that, for me, is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm done. Thank you.
I watched this movie at 6 o'clock this morning.
Was he in TMNT?
He was in TMNT. He's the store clerk who's pressing the fucking button, trying to get the police to come. Yeah. It's so blink and you miss it. It's so blink and you miss it. You can't even tell that Kevin Smith's in it. That's not an argument. That's literally just a fact.
All right. We'll strike that from the argument record, but it is a fact, so I won't.
For now.
Jay, over to you. 1 minute on the clock when ready.
All right. So let me put it to you like this. My original argument for this was Kevin Smith shouldn't direct a large IP because Kevin Smith never does well with movies that have a large budget. Everything it is that Kevin Smith has been done for like under $50 million. Giving him anything more than that is doing just a little bit too much. So I decided to go back to something that he loves and something that I know that he wanted to work with. He has this script that unfortunately now will never be made because Alan Rickman is no longer with us. He has a script called Hit Somebody. It is a hockey story. So I'm going based off of that, and I am choosing the Mighty Motherfucking Ducks as my choice because he loves hockey. He understands the sport. He understands comedy. He knows how to work with an ensemble cast, just like my opponent said. But you don't give him a large budget. You don't have to give him a large budget. I think that the Mighty Ducks would work with Kevin Smith the way that like Jay and Silent Bob work with Kevin Smith.
And time. All right, so we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles versus the Mighty Ducks, and I also want to clarify a fact here. He happened to have a script he wrote about a hockey film, not he wrote a script for a Mighty Ducks sequel, right?
Yes, he wrote a script for a hockey film called Hit Somebody.
Okay.
But gotcha. Alan Rickman was supposed to be the like Georgie of the story. It was like Christmas Story-esque, but Alan Rickman unfortunately passed away, and he's kind of shelved it. In the recent years. It was back in like 2011 before Rickman passed away, unfortunately. Rip Alan Rickman, by the way, always.
All right, so we will rip Alan Rickman, and we will move on to the next round of this debate. Rue, you're back up when ready.
If you've seen the last two Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, they're not very good. And as Jay had mentioned, big budget, big CGI, and you try to just go all out with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But one aspect of that movie that works well in both of them is Noel Fisher as Mikey, because he understood the assignment. He understood that Mikey is goofy, that Mikey is the heart of the family, that Mikey will do what he wants, when he wants, how he wants, and be likable to everybody, whether it makes him goofy or not. He is owning it. And that authenticity, that like bringing it back to the basics of who people are, of who the Turtles are, is why I think Kevin Smith would be so great at helming a new TMNT movie. He doesn't need a big budget for this. Bring this shit back to the basics. Put them back in practical outfits, just like you put Mark Hamill in the fucking suit in Jay and Silent Bob. Cock Knocker. Thank you. I don't remember the fucking name.
I got you, baby.
But do the same thing there. He is going to know how to treat every single one of these characters because he is that nerd that loves that franchise, that is that comic book nerd, that he knows who Mikey is. He knows who Donatello is. He knows who each one of those are going to be. And again, ensemble, where every single one of them has to shine, he has proven that he's able to do that. And that's why TMNT will work so well. You need to have some comedy. You need to have some comedy that are there for the kids, but it's gotta have some of those adult themes. I mean, they eat pizza all day. You know what they did before they ate that pizza if it wasn't a PG movie. Exactly what Kevin Smith does 24/7 all the damn time. He needs action. Now, that might be the one aspect that Kevin Smith doesn't know about. However, he can hire people. He knows people. And he can bring just great minds with his authentic sensibility of nerddom, put them together and make the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies that doesn't have to focus on any one
and time. All right, Jay, back over to you. 2 minutes.
Case Smitty loves comic books. There's no denying that whatsoever. He is more of a fan of Daredevil because he's written for Daredevil. He hasn't written for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's written for Batman. He hasn't written for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What he has done, however, is devote almost the last decade of his life to enjoying, loving, and consuming almost everything it is that is hockey. Henceforth, the reason why every time he comes on stage, he is repping a hockey jersey. I think giving this man access to a small budget, getting a crew that wants to work together with Kevin Smith, wants to work together on a classic movie where the underdogs come through, which is something that he always does. Like Dante is the underdog at the end of the movies. And sadly, you know, it didn't work out for Dante. And sometimes that's the way that movies go. Jay and Silent Bob are underdogs. Sometimes it works out for him, sometimes it doesn't. But I think giving Kevin Smith that control to be like, hey, I want to do something that I am actually passionate about. I want to create a movie that I am passionate about, and I want to focus it around the one sport that I am actually passionate about would work for him. Give him like $15 million, allow him free reign, and you have yourself by far one of the best entries in the Mighty Ducks franchise of all time. He doesn't like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The only reason he even worked on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is because he was asked by Patrick Stewart if he would voice an individual in this movie. It's rare, but Patrick Stewart has said it. Kevin Smith has said it. He's more of a fan of Daredevil, and Daredevil and the Turtles are connected. But saying that like he would work well with the Ninja Turtles, you can't make a kids movie a stoner movie, bro. It's just not going to work. I'm sorry. Yeah, they want to sit around and eat pizza all day. But guess what? Doing hockey is what he is passionate about. And when you're passionate about something, it shines through. That's what's going to make a great movie. And that's why he should helm the Mighty Ducks franchise.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. Timer starts back up when the first competitor speaks.
My guy, you just said it. You just said it. You cannot make a kids movie if you want to make a Kevin Smith movie. And the Mighty Ducks is owned by the Mighty Disney. The Mighty Ducks is the kids movie. It is 100% the kids movie that is always PG. He made a hockey film. He made
most of his movies are owned by Disney, by the way. I want you to know that. Most of his movies are owned by Disney, and they still release them. But
they don't release them with the IP of Mighty Ducks, which is the ultimate children's movie. He's making Goon. He's making
the
like
ultimate
Goon.
Children's movie is Goonies, by the way.
Anyway, he's making it like Goon, or like Mystery Alaska. He's trying to make that type of hockey movie. Now, I actually would love to see a Mighty Ducks movie. I would actually love to see a TMNT movie. I would love to see both. But what he should do is the one that would actually allow him free reign, because Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a comic book property, which comic book movies have already shown to be PG-13, PG, or R. So he's going to go to PG-13 and R route, while Mighty Ducks is a straight PG film, and he is not going to have the free reign that you think he might have.
Kevin Smith is the one individual who has gone up against the MPAA when they want to change his ratings for his movies and has won almost every single time. Don't give me that bullshit. He could create a fantastic PG-13 or an R-rated movie about the Mighty Ducks. Will it be R-rated? Absolutely not. Will it be PG-13? Most likely, because you know what? He has done more working with teens in his last like 4 outings as a director, which gives him a little bit more of like because he's worked with his daughter and he's worked with like Lily Rose Depp a lot in the last like 3 or 4 movies that he's working on, including Moose Jaws. Let's not sit here and act like, oh, Disney's not going to allow this to happen. Disney has Deadpool. Don't give me this Disney's not going to allow like R-rated or even PG-13 when it comes to certain franchises, comic book or not. The Mighty Ducks is the one thing that he's passionate about, and when you're passionate about something, guess what? You fight over it.
He's not passionate about the Mighty Ducks. He's passionate about hockey. He's working with teens. What's the first word in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, fam? Teenage. He's going to actually work with teenagers, but you don't have to have the worry
Kevin
about,
Smith
wait a second.
can't direct fight scenes.
These are already also, these are actual people. So I actually have to like a little bit rein in what I'm going to do when I do with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't have to rein it in as much because comic book movies can go a little bit deeper, especially with anthropomorphic characters that aren't actually human.
The more and more you rein that in, the higher your budget gets, though.
Why? Why do you have to go higher the budget to go rein it in? You don't.
Because you have to hire choreographers. No, because you have to hire fight choreographers. You have to hire fight choreographers. You have to create more suits. What do you have to do when it comes to hockey? What do you have to do when it comes to hockey uniforms? Get more pads. Guess what? That shit's cheap.
Hockey choreographers, people that more extras to actually do the hockey things.
More people ice skate than fight karate, bro.
Whether or not there's going to be a bigger budget or not, which there should not be, where Kevin Smith can go with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is actually everything you say he can go with his hockey movie, dealing with teenagers, dealing with the passion of comic books, dealing with the fact that he knows ensembles, dealing with the fact that he knows comedy, dealing with the fact that he knows great characters, but he doesn't have to worry about, wait a second, how much can I actually go into maybe the jokes I really want to go into? How much can I actually do that? The passion is for hockey, not for Mighty Ducks, just like the passion is for comic books, not necessarily Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but he can do more with them than the real.
You're right. The passion is for hockey, but guess what? That passion will shine through with a franchise or with a property like the Mighty Ducks more than it will for something that he's already stated that he doesn't want to do, which is a comic book movie, because he's already stated he doesn't want to do a comic book movie.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the final minute of the round. Amaru, back over to you. 1 minute on the clock.
Just because he states he doesn't want to do it doesn't mean that he shouldn't do it. Patrick Stewart convinced him to do this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. He should be doing the comic book movie because that is where his sensibilities are going to lie more. And scratch the comic book, the fact that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles hits every single aspect of the things that he loves. Apparently working with teenagers, great comedy, great ensembles, nerddom, actual authentic characters that you can build and love and continue to make grow, make Mikey more hilarious, make Donatello even smarter, make Raphael even more of a jackass to fight with and against Leonardo, kind of making Raphael the talking the combination of Jay and Silent Bob together, because he talks and he can be silent at the same time. Everything that he wants is there. With the Mighty Ducks, he is going to be hindered thinking every time, wait a second, I would rather make my Goon movie and not have to figure out what I can and can't do for Mighty Ducks.
All right. And then, Jay, back over to you. Final minute of the round.
I've already brought up the fact that that is incorrect. He is the man who has the most arguments against the MPAA for keeping what he wants in his movies to be the factual thing. I don't want to hear that argument. That argument has already been defeated. You sit here and say, yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is one thing, and Patrick Stewart talked him into it. Guess what? You don't have Patrick Stewart in your movie. You never mentioned Patrick Stewart, so he doesn't have it. He doesn't have the drive to do it. He said he never wants to direct a comic book movie because he doesn't want to fail at it. You give him something that he's passionate about. like a movie revolving around hockey. You call it Goon. That's not what it's called. It's called Hit Somebody. Don't try to conflate those two things. He can go ahead and bring that down because that's a movie about a kid who has come up living in the world of hockey. And what do you have in the Mighty Ducks? Kids who live in the world of hockey. He will be able to write that because he's already been able to write it. He just has to change it just a little bit, and he's going to be able to keep creative control over it. And it's why it's the one movie franchise that he should be in charge of. Mighty Ducks is the correct option.
And time. All right, another excellent round, guys. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the back, and I will bring the judges on screen for the deliberation. So to attempt to clean up some fact checks, Kevin Smith's most expensive film, and this is a genuine, believe it or not, is actually Jersey Girl, which costs $35 million to make. It made $35.5 million at the box office, so it doesn't take much math to tell you that that movie failed. In terms of the comment made of Kevin Smith, if he's not in action expertise, he could hire somebody who could help him. That is 100% something that has been done in Hollywood before. There is fact to back that up. The most famous example, maybe just based on the names involved, was the Russos have openly talked about how when they took over directing Captain America: The Winter Soldier, they hired on, at the time, they were only stunt coordinators, but David Leitch and Chad Stahelski, who have both gone on to have directing careers in Hollywood over the 2010s, to actually work on the stunt choreography in the film. And most of the action scenes done in the movie, even if they weren't the ones physically directing them, they had a heavy hand in laying out how they would go, more so than your average stunt coordinator. Kevin Smith was brought into TMNT by Patrick Stewart. I was able to find where they said that. In terms of Kevin Smith's comments on directing a comic book movie, if you try and Google Kevin Smith and comic book, 1,000,001 articles come up, so I couldn't find that exact quote. Lily Rose Depp and his daughter, Harley Quinn Smith, would have been about 13, 14 years old when they shot Tusk. So, yes, he does, in fact, like working with teenagers. And as far as I could find, Kevin Smith has had, at the minimum, 3 major fights against the MPAA over ratings, all of which he did win for Clerks, Jersey Girl, and most recently, as far as I could find, Zack and Miri Make a Porno. All of which I believe were originally rated NC-17, and then he fought to have them diminished down to a rated R without removing much, if any, content. With that said, Chad, I go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yes, they both tried to argue, or did a good job, arguing that the other franchise would rein in Kevin Smith too much and not let him do what he's going to do. But I think the one that worked for me more was slightly Jay, just because Jay did have that thing at the end where he was like, it's still like a big comic book franchise. They're going to rein him in. They're not going to let him do what he wants to do. And I don't know. I feel like that worked a little more than saying that Mighty Ducks has to be PG, and he can't do the kind of adult humor that he likes to do. And yeah, I really do think that Kevin Smith would probably prefer to do a hockey movie, especially because Jay at the point where he said that Kevin Smith, even apparently, if it's correct, said that he never wants to do a comic book movie because he wouldn't do it right. So he might not even have the confidence in doing it. So.
All right. So the first vote goes to Jay. Malcolm, down to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah, this was tough for many. This was tough for many reasons. It's just mostly because it was a good debate. But ultimately, I also agree with Jay. He managed to sort of convince me of why he would do good for Mighty Ducks sequel with the fact of his hockey background and all that. And yeah.
Okay. All right, judges, thank you guys so much. I'm going to go ahead and sit you in the back and bring the competitors back in because we are 2-2 as expected. This has been a real back and forth, and we are moving on to the blind rounds. Here's how this works. Questions 5 and 6 are both a blind round. These are 2 questions that have been randomly assigned to this match by myself. The competitors have no idea what's coming at them. They will be given a generalization of a question, at which point they will be forced to answer based off the generalization. They just have to give an answer that meets the qualification of it. Then the real question itself will be revealed, at which point they'll have a few minutes off screen to put together some arguments for it, and then they will come back and debate. Other than that, the rules are the exact same as the first 4 rounds. We're not changing the format on them just yet, but we will go ahead and get into this. All right, guys. Are we ready to go?
Let's go.
Okay, perfect. All right. I just realized I had something marked wrong. My bad. Okay, so some of these questions, let's just be totally honest, okay? Some of these questions, even though you picked your strengths, I don't think they've been totally up your alley. I certainly challenged you guys with the way that I sent some of these questions. I think we can all agree on that, okay? So I wanted to be nice, and I wanted to give you guys something that we all know is in your wheelhouse. Name me a Wizarding World film.
Half-Blood Prince.
I'm sorry, that cut out. Could you repeat it for me?
Half-Blood Prince.
Half-Blood Prince. Got it?
Wait. I'm sorry. What are my... If you have to cut this, that's fine. We got speed round questions, yeah?
They come
That
after
comes
the
after.
line round.
Okay,
That's the
okay.
tiebreaker.
If we get to it. If we get to it.
Well, we will get
You're
to
good,
it,
you're
obviously.
good. Don't worry.
Okay.
It's your first time. It's complicated the first time. It's easier the second time.
Fuck me, dude. Oh, I'm not even worried about like my pick. I'm worried about what the question is following my pick. That's the thing. I legit thought about that. I'm not gonna lie. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Okay.
I am, dude. I am, bro. Like legit. I know nobody can see it. Chad said I am imploding. I am, dude. Oh fuck, dude. No, because it's gonna be what's the best fucking Wizarding World film, and I've already lost, and I don't know how well I can fucking make this argument, but I'm gonna try.
Okay, and as with title matches, we're going to answer both questions first before we go backstage, because at the very least, we will be playing both of them. Your second blind round question, in honor of the Oscars last week, in which I'm sure I certainly agreed with what won Best Picture. We're clearly recording this before it, but they aired last weekend. Name me a film that won the Best Picture Oscar, and you guys can do a Google search for options. You guys can take that time.
Did the Oscars happen last weekend?
When this uploads.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was like, don't fucking do that to me, bro. Happy early / and/or belated birthday, Chad. Happy birthday, because this is uploading after the Oscars. Happy belated birthday. There we go. God damn it. God damn it. There's no way you would do that. There's no way you would do that.
I just want to note that at this point, Jay is not having a conversation with the private chat. He is just talking to himself.
I am just talking to myself.
So I'm going to go ahead and take this dead air moment while these guys are making a decision to remind you guys that we have a couple of big matches coming up over the next couple of weeks. If you think that this is the last big match for a while, next weekend we are actually holding our next number one contender matchup to decide who goes into the title match following this. You guys are going to get to watch former champion Henry Sanchez, who gets a number one contenders match off the back of his two defenses, take on Austin Pez Howe, who beat Will Cohen to get to this position.
Also, boo.
And the following week, just to strike my own ego, we have the 150th Movie Battleground match going up. And in that match, I will be competing, if I can speak properly, competing against Jacob West in that matchup. So we have a couple big matchups coming up over the next few weeks to tune into. Are we any closer to picking between the nearly 100 films that have won Best Picture?
Closer, but not there yet.
Yeah, same.
Okay, at this point,
Holy
I'm
God.
going to
Also
make
edit
an
it.
editor's note. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, and we are back from that short little break there. These guys have come to a decision. It doesn't matter who submits first because this was already predetermined who would go first by the picking of the questions in the setup. So I'll go ahead. Rue, since you will be going first on the second question, what is your answer?
On the second question.
Yes.
Unforgiven.
Okay. Unforgiven. And Jay, what is your answer?
Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
All right, so we have Unforgiven versus Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Your blind round questions are, what is the best Wizarding World film of all time?
No.
And which Best Picture Oscar-winning film is least deserving of the award?
Good game, Rue.
With that said,
Good
we're going to take a
game,
couple
Rue.
minutes behind the scenes to allow these guys to put their arguments together. We will be back in just a moment with the blind round.